Welcome, everybody, to the realm of ridiculous, where we discuss Warhammer fantasy, heralded by the host of today's episode, DK. Before we get started on all of that, if you enjoy this podcast and you want to support us, check out patreon.com/Adeptus Ridiculous, where you can get access to bloopers if they happen, high quality posters, Discord access, and all of that goodness. Check it out at patreon.com/ridiculous. And if you got merch, wants, needs, dice, etc., objective markers, so on, check it out orc8.com. Before that, we're going to roll a quick ad for you. Shebang. This episode of Nightmarish Dark Mechanicum stuff is brought to you by Raycon Everyday Earbuds, the fantastic earbuds with a plethora of amazing features. Raycon is still the leader in fantastic earbuds, ones with incredible sound quality, high battery life, and at a fraction of the cost of all the other competitors. Not only are they half the price of all the other guys, but they are also going to be on sale with the fantastic Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals for up to 30% off. I personally love the amazing matte black version. I also love this great carrying case that comes along with it. A great little extra deal to spice up some excellent listening. And right now I'm listening to False Gods on these, and that's just like, it's a really good audiobook. Not to mention they have the sound canceling, the awareness mode, they have a quick charge feature. They are a fantastic deal. So today you can go ahead and save big on Black Friday and Cyber Monday by going to buyraycon.com/adric for up to 30% off your order. That is site-wide at buyraycon.com/adric. Thank you so much for sponsoring this video, and we're back.
Shabang!
Shabang!
Shaboom!
Shabang, shaboom. Hello, DK, hello.
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 It's been a little bit. Yeah. How we doing?
That, you know, were you a Seinfeld person?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember when they would go in, they would go like in the apartment and they'd be like, hello. All right.
Voice. Yep.
Yes. Okay. That was an inside joke for my family for a long time.
Oh, the hello.
The hello.
You know, I imagine back in the day that wasn't much of an inside joke. Like if you use that around anybody from like that was alive for Seinfeld, they'd immediately get it.
Oh yeah, that's a 100%. This is definitely a generational gap going on right now.
Definitely. Yep. Seinfeld friends, I get those references.
We have a couple Seinfeld friends in here, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure.
So,
you know, it's been it feels like it's been a little bit since we've done one of these episodes. So, are you ready to start off with a quote?
Oh, okay. I mean, not really.
Yeah, your ratio of quotes is not terrible. I feel like it is not as bad as mine.
I think the biggest problem is that I just don't know what a ton of said quotes can be.
True. I guess that does help, right? You don't have like a bunch of stuff swirling around in your head where you'll get it confused with like Slanesh or some other chaos thing. That's true.
Yeah,
but
I don't know the names of all the factions specifically, so that's also a part of the issue. But I am willing to try.
Okay. I don't think this is going to be a difficult one. I think every video on the faction I watched has used this quote. It's just like front and center on the wiki, but it's just the most fitting one. So, your quote. From the deepest, darkest tunnels they came, burrowing and banging, shouting and smashing. We soon learned not to try to negotiate, save with axes and cannons. For thousands upon thousands of years we have fought them, and many think we will soon be defeated. Yet we have our plans, and someday we will take back our ancestral holds, or else destroy both homes and the foul blank who now pollute them.
Okay, well, when you talked about tunnels and stuff, my immediate thought was like the Skaven, because you were like, you chittering little assholes. But it's definitely, we did the Skaven, so it's not the Skaven.
We did the Skaven. Mm-hmm.
Oh God, we already did the dwarves too.
We did do the dwarves.
And
yes, we did.
When I was thinking like holes and stuff, like coming down from the whole. So wait, the people who are in this are like underground?
Not necessarily.
Oh, geez.
Some of them are underground, though.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to think of. Whether it's not elves.
It's not elves.
It's not elves.
It's not elves. Can't be humans.
What other
did humans?
Vampire courts? The vampire counts?
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, why not?
Ooh, no, it is not the vampire courts.
I gotta
one
at like I gotta look at like a list of faction names because I don't know all the factions.
Yep. So you missed the big one, that the what we're talking about today, and the one that just fell off the radar. Today we're talking about Greenskins.
Oh, the orcs?
Today we're talking about, well, Greenskins is a sort of catch-all term for like orcs, goblins, snotlings, and squigs.
Oh, okay. So it's just, well, I guess that's kind of a catch-all term in 40K too. So I guess that makes sense.
I guess it kind of is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, in fantasy, orcs is spelled with a C, not a K.
Ooh, branding.
Fancy, right? But we're gonna be doing our little Greenskin talk a little different today because the Greenskins haven't changed that much. Like the Greenskins that we know in 40K, they're pretty close. It's not exact, but it's pretty close. So we're gonna do like sort of a basic little rundown of them, and this episode is actually going to be more, we're going to talk about some really cool Greenskins. We're going to talk about some really badass Greenskins, some funny Greenskins, and just, we'll talk about some cool guys.
Okay. So I'm assuming, well, you say they're very similar to what we know and love.
Yes, they're very similar.
So hopefully this won't be an episode where I completely confuse the things over and over again.
Probably not.
Probably not. So much faith.
Probably not. Well,
Which actually is a good question. Is there a power of belief, perchance?
We will talk about that.
Okay, interesting. Continue, sir.
All right, so we'll do a quick rundown of the origins of the Greenskin in fantasy. And really, their origins, there's not a whole lot on them. Like, basically, their origin breaks down to, like, well, the Greenskin spores showed up in the fantasy world somehow. It was either because they hitched a ride on the old one's ships in space, and then they just kind of happenstanced into fantasy, or the spores just somehow showed up from space. So it's just the spores somehow got here.
Okay, so they much like an orc type thing, they just kind of arrive.
Yeah.
All
somehow
right.
They got here. Most people like to believe that the old ones accidentally brought them while they were terraforming everything. But, other people are just like, no, they just kind of happenstance there. They just existed. So their reproduction system is by and large the same too. They still just are always producing spores from their skin. Those spores will kind of burrow underground. The spores will slowly turn into greenskins underground, and then they'll like dig their way to the surface. And I think they always come out under the cap of a mushroom.
Like literally under the cap of a mushroom?
Literally under the cap of a mushroom. Yeah.
All right. So, okay. I mean, it's Warhammer. Subtlety is never the thing, but okay, good to know that we're sticking with it.
Yep. And while the Greenskins are like this massive, deadly potential of a force, like the Orcs and Greenskins we're used to, they are very keen on always fighting, always being in combat. They are happiest when they are fighting, and of course, they usually end up fighting themselves more than they end up fighting the actual enemy forces. So a lot of infighting, a lot of just banging heads against each other. Very, very typical of what we know.
This is everything so far is exactly as I would ever expect.
Yep. It's pretty close. Not a lot has changed about the Orcs since fantasy.
But I also noticed their armor is like nearly identical.
Kind of. It depends on the orc, really. And we'll talk about some of like the different orcs, but like some of them will use a lot of like iron plate. Some of them just straight up won't use armor. I think a vast majority of them just use like iron armor and iron weaponry, though. I think that's sort of like their sort of base material for their weapons armors. A lot of iron.
Most of the orcs look like or the greenskins, I guess, look like your typical like orc boy.
Yeah,
just big and armored and tough.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And as you may have guessed, the greenskins don't really have a super intricate set of like laws and rules that they follow. With orcs, as usual, it's kind of the law of the jungle. The strongest survive. If you want something and you're strong enough to take it, go for it. They do have like pit fights. If there's like this big squabble that they need to decide, they do have pit fights. But again, it's like, well, if you're strong enough to win the pit fight, you're going to be victorious no matter what you did. So it's just the strongest survive. If you can fight your way out of it, you're good.
I mean, you say squabbles, but I'm assuming it's just like the usual like oi, and then do they talk in the accent? Do they have the football hooligan accent?
They must.
Fantastic.
Because they're still stupid. They're still your typical Greek. So yes, they simply must. I refuse to believe the orcs do not talk a little bit like this.
I love how you said they're still stupid when it's just like a British accent. Like, yeah, they're still dumb. Those damn Brits.
I guess that's fair. I didn't realize it was like, hey, do they still talk like hooligans? And I'm like, yeah, of course, they're still stupid. Oh, Shai wants me to read the quote. Everything I see is mine. Oh, do you have bits of mine too? I just ain't got here yet. When we reach the end of the world, we'll turn around and march back.
Yeah, okay, that's about what I was expecting.
Yep. But the greenskins mostly made up of like orcs and goblins. Those are sort of like your important guys. I mean, you do have snotlings and squigs, but orcs and goblins, kind of the focus. The
Forcus among us.
I was literally about to say that. You have the orcs, who typically big muscle broses. We do the heavy work. We do the fighting. And as is the common theme with orcs, as they grow older and they defeat more and more enemies, they will tend to get bigger. And apparently, because in 40K, as they defeat more and more enemies, they get bigger, right?
The more they fight.
Yeah. And I was reading that, like, if an orc is never defeated and never dies, it will literally spend its entire life growing bigger. Okay. I'm not so sure if that was the way it was in 40K.
Well, in 40K, you get bigger by fighting. I'm assuming that is this you getting bigger not by fighting, but just by being alive. It's just you're not alive for very long
by fighting and killing. But as long as it's not like there's a ceiling.
So do they also become like smarter as well? Because they become bigger and smarter in 40K, as we found out.
Ooh, do they become smarter?
Because bigger is obviously one thing, and obviously might makes right in Warhammer, but they definitely become smarter in 40K, or at least do now as of the Big Daka and all that.
Yeah, in fantasy, I don't think they get smarter. I think they just get bigger.
Okay. So
they just get bigger and more blunt, and it's like, well, of course you're not going to step to him. Look at how big he is.
Okay, so it's more of just a size. All right, that's fair. I wonder because Gaskell is a pretty smart orc. He's still an orc, but he's pretty smart.
But for an orc, he's smart.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and I got to mention these two subspecies of orcs. So there's this subspecies of orc called the savage orcs, and you know how we were just talking about how the orcs, they're already kind of dumb. They're kind of just apparently in fantasy, if an orc is in sunlight or prolonged heat for too long, its brain starts to just like shrivel up and degenerate even further. And they turn into like base level savages. Even by orc standards, they turn into these just base savages. They don't wear armor, and they're going into battle with primitive weapons made out of bones.
That model is so good.
I hadn't seen that model. That is peak orc.
That model is fantastic. It's just all of them carrying the big stick.
The big stick, the big pointy stick.
Okay, so
yeah.
Wait, when you say like base level savagery, do you mean like grug hit, grug punch?
Kinda, because like their language is described as like even the orcs are just like they're just grunting. They're just grunting at each other like very primitive savages. They're actually a lot more tolerant of like magic and shamans, which the orcs and goblins do have their shamans and their magic greenskins, so they're a lot more tolerant of them, which is good because the savage orcs don't wear armor. They've got a pelt here and there, but mostly if they need protection, they have special war paint that's painted on them by a shaman, and those war paint symbols and stuff will grant them protection.
Okay, actually, like grant them protection though.
Actually, yeah. Their shamans actually can do magic, and they're very tolerant of it. Most greenskins are kind of like, oh, I don't much like the shaman, magic. Then you have a group called the Black Orcs, who essentially were made because they were just this big, catastrophic mistake made by the Chaos Dwarves.
The Chaos Dwarves?
Yeah, Chaos Dwarfs.
Which
we haven't
dwarfs.
talked about, but, you know. So Chaos Dwarves have a bunch of greenskin slaves. And the Chaos Dwarves, they're getting tired of how rebellious and the fact that the greenskins won't listen to them. They keep fighting each other. They keep causing trouble. And it's just, man, this isn't efficient. So the Chaos Dwarves are like, you know what? Let's take the biggest, baddest orcs we've got. Let's use our dark magic. And then we'll make them super obedient with our magic. What could go wrong? As you can imagine, it all goes horribly wrong because they did essentially make super orcs. Like, they made just like these orcs are actually kind of smart. They're much stronger. They're much more intelligent. But because of all of that, the Black Orcs just end up leading a rebellion and overthrowing their Chaos Dwarf oppressors.
Okay, I was about to say that, but like this is an immediate like, oh, they're smart now, and now they're gone.
Yep. This was a big fuck around and find out moment for the Chaos Dwarves. They killed a lot of them, and like I said, like Black Orcs are actually kind of smart. Like they don't actually infight amongst themselves very much. They're smart enough to be like, hey, that's a dumb thing to do. We shouldn't do that. It's completely detrimental to us. And the Black Orcs are like the elite among the elite in the Greenskins. Like, they are the fiercest warriors with the best choppers, and they get like the heavy plate armor. And the big thing about Black Orcs is they kind of stick their nose up at pretty much every other greenskin and find them to be dim-witted and stupid, and man, they do not like being around the other greenskins. They hate it.
Okay, yeah, I'm about to say, so try got BB2 equivalent to knobs in a way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's also super normal for war bosses to specifically be like when they're setting up the barracks and everything, they're just like, okay, Black Orcs, this area, it's just for you. You've got your own special little area. Because if they didn't, and the Greenskins and the Black Orcs were interacting too much, the Black Orcs would probably just kill everyone. They would just get so upset with how stupid and dim-witted orcs and goblins are, they would probably just kill everyone.
How smart are Black Orcs? Like you keep saying that they're really smart, but like to what extent?
I mean, like I said, they know better than to like fight amongst themselves. They can actually use some tactics, but yeah, probably they've probably got around human level intelligence.
Really?
Yeah, they're pretty smart.
Okay, I mean,
Orcs.
well, yeah, for orcs, of course, but like, I didn't expect them to be at that level, at least, I guess. I expected like slightly more enhanced savages, I guess.
Yeah, you don't mess around with the black orcs. Black orcs are the kind of the cream. So, while the orcs are like the big, hulking, dumb brutes, the goblins are like the sort of small, cowardly, but generally speaking, the more intelligent of the two. So they're the ones that are like crafting the weapons, gathering the food, making the houses, stuff like that. And while the orcs still basically just bully them all the time, as is very typical, and treat them as little better than slaves, goblins far outnumber the orcs. And the goblins are just really cunning little bastards. And like I said, the goblins do all of the shit that the orcs are either too dumb or too lazy to do. Like I said, weapons, huts, food. So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship, even though like the goblins get treated like shit. The orcs need the goblins. I was reading somewhere that like there are a few orc tribes that just literally have no goblins, none at all. And these orcs, they're just kind of laying around in the mud all day. You know, they don't know how to get food, really. They just kind of meander around and have just the most awful time without the goblins.
Do they not have any goblins because they like killed all the goblins, or
either that or they like so heavily look down on goblins? They're like, oh, we don't need those little gits. And they were just, you know, they just wouldn't have anything to do with them.
And so now life is miserable.
Absolutely miserable for them. Oh, the misery.
Oh, the misery.
Other thing about goblins is that they are ridiculously adaptive to their surroundings. Like, there are so many subspecies of goblins. Like, you have night goblins who are adapted to living underground. You have fire kobolds who have evolved to live in a very hot volcanic region. You've got like frost goblins that are accustomed to living in the cold, and so on and so forth. They can adapt to live literally anywhere.
That's extremely annoying.
Well, it's a goblin, right? Goblins aren't supposed to be anything but. And as far as combat is concerned, obviously the Greenskins live for savage warfare first and foremost. They always want to be rolling into a fight. They're always looking for the next big bad Greenskin to start a war that they can get behind. And much like in 40K, most WAs tend not to last very long, maybe a few weeks, because the Greenskins, they usually end up turning on each other. They start infighting. The WA isn't going the way they wanted, so everybody's kind of just, you know, fighting each other instead.
I mean, that's just classic orc stuff, if I'm being honest.
It's classic orc stuff. And as you can imagine, Greenskins don't really have much in the way of war tactics. They're pretty much, as you'd expect, run up to the enemy, start wrecking shit. They don't really do big strats. Gork and Mork are also around in fantasy, with the same idea that Gork is cunningly brutal and Mork is brutally cunning. And while it's true some Greenskins can't really figure out the difference and just praise the twin gods, it's actually very typical that goblins, who are cunning and more intelligent, will prefer worshipping Mork, while the orcs, who are the brutal savages, tend to prefer worshipping Gork.
Okay, at least we got a little diversity now.
Yeah, we got a little diversity
in the Gorka Morka life that they're currently living. Let's go.
And one of the biggest signs of weakness and cowardice in Greenskin society is if you need to beg and pray to Gork and Mork for aid. You are seen as the biggest weakling and the biggest coward ever, because the twin gods, they don't answer cowards. They only reward the strong.
Wait, so what happens if you do like praise that or like ask for help? Is that just if you like a moment of weakness, or the other Gorks look at you like, ugh?
Yeah, they look down on you and they're like, "Oh, what a weakling. What a little bitch. Needing to pray. Oh, disgusting."
You get nothing and someone else stabs you. Got it. Perfect.
Yep, pretty much. All right, so that's our super like quick TLDR rundown on Greenskins, right? They're pretty close to their 40k counterparts, and don't worry, we will talk about sort of like the Wa magic and like the sort of their pseudo, not really power of belief, but we'll talk about that. But we only have so much time. We got to talk about some like really badass orcs and goblins. And a Greenskin episode simply would not be a Greenskin episode if we did not talk about an orc named Grimgore Ironhide.
Grimgore Ironhide.
Grimgore Ironhide. And he is
Grimgore Ironhide.
Ironhide.
You're telling me this man's grim is gore, and his gore is grim, and his hide is iron? God damn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he is, without a doubt, the most battle-hardened, badass orc probably to ever exist in Warhammer Fantasy. As far as his origins go, there's really not too much on it other than he's a black orc, so he was probably a Chaos Dwarf slave, was part of the rebellion, probably something like that. And the only one that really knows his history is him. And anytime somebody tries to ask him about it, just say he's none too keen on sharing the details.
Does he just say it like that specifically?
No, he probably will kill you.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I don't know. Part of me liked the idea of Grimgore Ironhide being like, "Oh, it's a sensitive spot, you know. I don't want to talk about it."
Big black orc. He's just like, "Listen, I go to therapy every week because I can't deal with the horrors of my history.
So I don't much appreciate you talking to me about it.
I'd appreciate it if you didn't talk to me about me mum and me dad.
You get."
Yeah. But basically all that's known about his origin is that at some point he comes out of a place called the Blasted Wastes, which is like kind of the east-ish of the fantasy map where the Chaos Dwarves were hanging around. And when he was first seen, he was already covered in battle scars. He was missing an eye, and he had an elite group of black bodyguards with him that were simply known as the Immortals.
Are they immortal?
I mean,
or are they just really tough?
Well, they're not dead yet. They've been winning and winning, so it's an apropos name. Quote for you. You wanna read the Grimgore quote?
I don't. I can't do the orc voice, buddy.
Oh, fine.
I can't do the orc voice.
I'm gonna stomp them to dust. I'm gonna grind their bones. I'm gonna burn down their towns and cities. I'm gonna pile them up in a big fire and roast them. I'm gonna bash heads, break faces, and jump up and down onto bits to the left. And then I'm gonna get really mean.
That's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah. He hasn't gotten mean yet by doing all that stuff. Then he's gonna get mean. And from the first moment he steps out of the World Edge Mountain and he starts walking around, he just starts cleaning the collective clocks of any Greenskin or any Greenskin tribe that dared step to him. And from what I've learned about Grimgore, his mindset is very simple. He doesn't care about forming a massive Wa. He doesn't care about being a massive leader. This guy, he just wants to be a part of the heaviest, fiercest, most nonstop drag-em-out fighting you can get. He wants to put his skills to the test. He wants to be in life or death combat always. And he hates, more than anything, he hates not being in combat. Like if
that's just a typical orc thing as far as I'm concerned.
True, but if he goes one day without a battle, he gets just furiously pissed. If 2 days pass and he still hasn't had a battle, he will literally start killing anything within reach, within arm's reach. He will kill it, except for maybe his most loyal Black Orc follower. And if 3 days pass, well, no one's ever seen that. And his followers fear the day that happens because they can't possibly imagine what he would do.
That's so goofy. I just like, it's like, all right, so the 1 day, oh, that's not good. The 2 day, we're losing.
That's really not good.
3, I mean, wouldn't he necessarily be in a battle in the 2nd day, though? Because technically he's fighting someone because he starts clobbering people.
I guess that's true. I guess he would never, well, maybe it's like, oh yeah, it has to be like a war.
Oh, okay.
A war!
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Maybe. And so because of this, Grimgore will do things like, march on Karak Kadrin, which, if you don't remember, that's the Slayer's Keep. That's where all the fucking dwarf slayers and the Slayer King is.
Oh, right. He'll just be like, God, I'm so angry and I want to fight stuff. I'm going in there.
Yeah, he'll want the best fight he can possibly get. So he's like, oh, I'm just going to march on the Slayer Keep. And he'll just start slaughtering any of the slayers that try to stop him. And the thing is, though, he never actually makes a real bid to actually take this Karak. He never makes a bid to actually, infiltrate the Slayer's Keep. He just, stays outside, and he just keeps fighting wave after wave of slayers that are getting sent at him, just getting the thrill out of killing the most battle-hardened, crazy dwarfs that they've got. They lost so many slayers and so many dwarfs that all they could do when Grimgore was advancing, all they could do was sit behind their walls, hope he got bored, and hope that the harsh winter would finally force Grimgore to leave, which it did.
With the winter, just
well, it was really fierce winter, and he's not exactly the smartest, so it's not like he comes with supplies. It's not like he has a base of operations, so he just strongest armies
just gets really cold, and he's like, God damn it, I got to go.
Pretty much.
Damn.
Pretty much. Just a harsh winter just makes them leave.
Damn, I didn't expect the Slayer dwarves to get kind of clobbered like that.
Grimgore just bodies them. Although, hey, if you're a Slayer, that's probably the way to go.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Slayer dwarves would like to die that way. That's true.
Right? So there were probably Slayers in that keep. They were like, oh, I have dreamed of this day.
They don't have their... What was it? They had dwarf depression or whatever it was if they don't fight enough.
Mm-hmm. They have... if they survive too much, they get really depressed because they're like, oh, God, I just want to die. And then my family won't be burdened with me being a failure. And I'm sure...
That's right.
Realistically, Grimgore made a lot of dreams come true that day.
Good. You know what? That Grimgore, what a guy. What an orc. What a nice guy treating those dwarves with such a kindness.
Yeah, he really leads the chart when it comes to Slayer's Make-A-Wish Foundation. What a guy.
Good God.
And something similar would actually happen when he made his way to Kislev, which is sort of like the frozen...
I know Kislev.
Yeah, you know Kislev.
They're the kind of ambiguously Slavic region of bear and ice cold people. They were in the prologue of Warhammer Total War 3. Yippee!
And Grimgore again is just unstoppable. He is just absolutely decimating everything in his path. It's pretty cold in Kislev, but even that's not really stopping him. And he's just tearing Kislev apart. And it's legit looking like he is just gonna dumpster them. The only thing that stops him is someone named Katerin the Ice Queen. She literally has to summon a massive magical blizzard right on top of Grimgore's advance. And even when the blizzard first shows up, Grimgore doesn't stop. like his greenskins are dying in droves because they're smack dab in like the middle of this big blizzard. But Grimgore's like, "Oh, no, keep moving. And of course, as a greenskin, if you're like, "Oh no, this is bad news because we're right in the middle of a blizzard," Grimgore, as you can imagine, Grimgore is not a huge fan of retreating.
Doesn't take that particularly lightly.
No. And so he just starts killing anybody that tries to run. So...
I mean, slay.
Boy, do he. And so, now the greenskins are dying because of the blizzard and because Grimgore's killing him. And it literally takes a bunch of orc shaman talking Grimgore down and being like, "Brother, as much as you might think you cannot punch and cut your way through magic. We gotta go. We got to go." And so finally, Grimgore relents and retreats. And Grimgore thought he was being cute because he was like, "Ooh, as I'm leaving, the blizzard's dying." And he tries to like turn the troops around and start fighting again. And then Katarina just summons another blizzard on him. And he's like, "Oh, bugger." And he finally, full on retreats.
That's just a funny idea that like, because he's leaving, the blizzard is going down, because that's what would happen, like, "Oh, they're leaving, I'll turn the blizzard off." And then he comes back, he's like, "Oh, I'll just turn the blizzard back on."
Yeah, just flick the on switch on the blizzard again, please. There's also another kind of crazy story about Grimgore where he decided he wanted to take a dwarven carrot called Ungor, because he was like, "Oh, the cold keeps getting me. I need a stronghold." And this stronghold was under control of a bunch of night goblins called the Red Eyes, which, shock of all shock, Grimgore fucking dumpsters them.
What is stopping Grimgore? I feel like every story about Grimgore is him like completely clobbering someone.
What's stopping him? It looks like the only thing that's really stopping him is just really shitty weather.
I must say, it seems like it's just the cold.
Yeah, just really harsh winters and apparently blizzards.
I mean, he seems pretty armored. Like, how bad are these blizzards?
I mean, the one Katarina summoned has got to be absolutely savage. But like we mentioned in the dwarf episode, he's trying to he's trying to take over the whole hold, and usually the bottom layers of Karax are pretty infamous for being just a constant battleground between dwarves, greenskins, and Skaven. And in this particular Karak, the goblins are having a rough time with the Skaven. They're Skaven from Clan Moldor. And so Grimgore is like, "Oh, this is great!" Because he goes down to the lower levels and he starts like killing Skaven, and they're like an endless horde down there because he'll spend like days or weeks killing Skaven, and then boop, a new hole pops up, more Skaven come flooding out, and he's just like, "Oh, this is endless combat. I love it." So business is a booming for Grimgore. And Grimgore, being, as we have said, the absolute unstoppable behemoth that he was, is literally driving the Skaven back to the point where, unbeknownst to him, he is literally, with his troops, he is literally making an advance on Clan Moldor's actual base of operations, the Hell Pit.
Without knowing it, of course, because he's just
killing Skaven.
So I imagine fighting Skaven would be fun for orcs, but horrifying for Skaven.
Yes. Skaven, it would be, because they love their outnumbered, misadvantaged fights. And they would think, "Oh, it's just one orc. We got this." Yeah,
I was about to say, they also probably don't like dying much. So I'm getting the feeling that the orcs
we all do,
are running. The orcs are just like running at them, just like laughing and killing Skaven, and the Skaven are like fleeing in large numbers and then stabbing their friend, and then etc.
Mm-hmm. Orcs love it, Skaven hate it. And so the master of Hellpit, his name is Throt the Unclean, is getting a little nervous.
Wait, is this clan the Nurgly clan?
Clan Moldor is more the They do like, I feel like they do, so they're the ones that make the rat ogres. So they do a lot of like mutations. And,
the
they're like the
scientists.
mad scientists. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, because there's the clan that's all about is that Clan Pestilence?
Yes. Clan Pestilence
okay, never mind.
Where everybody is like, they probably worship Nurgle.
Okay, right. I forgot the name of the clan, and now that it's Clan Pestilence. Well, yeah. Clan Pestilence is pretty fucking obvious.
Yeah,
so,
it kind of is.
All right.
But Throt the Unclean is getting a little nervous. Like, he sees this coming. He hears, like, retreating Skaven talking. He's like, you know what? Let's deal with this. Let's deal with this. And so he rounds up his absolute strongest and fiercest rat ogres. The wiki says there are dozens of these absolutely roided up, mutated, insane, best rat ogres he could find that are now bearing down on Grimgore. And at first, Grimgore is actually kind of surprised by this because he's seeing this big, just sea of rat ogres bearing down on him and his men. His men. And the rat ogres at the start are successful in actually pushing them back a little bit, pushing back Grimgore and the Greenskins. But once Grimgore gets his bearings, he kind of makes his stand, and he kind of goes like 300 Leonidas on these rat ogres. Like, he finds this really narrow hallway. He finds this just absolute killing field. And while all the other orcs, they just abandon ship because there's like, nope, ain't no fucking way. Grimgore stands his ground, and he's kind of just like 1v100ing these rat ogres, and he is having the time of his life. This is just peak Grimgore. This is what he wanted. This is what he needed. Oh, lovely. And Grimgore wins. Grimgore legit.
What do you mean he wins?
He wins. Like, legit, he is such an absolute blender that the Skaven start retreating. The rat ogres, the few that survived, are legit running their asses back to the hell pit. And so Throt the Unclean sees all this, and he's like, fine, I'll do it myself. And he gears up with the most crazy experimental mutants he can find. He's like, all right, I'm going to get Grimgore. I'm going to stop this MFer. But when Throt the Unclean arrives, Grimgore is gone. Not because he was scared, not that he knew that Throt was coming. Grimgore was just bored. After he mauled all of those rat ogres, he was just like, oh, that must have been the best they had. Everything else that's here, it's just going to be stupid. It's just going to be not worth my time. And so he just straight up left the hold, and he is on a never-ending quest to find a more interesting challenge, a more hardened fight, and to just find something to do.
So he's like Grim. If I'm not mistaken, he is basically just this like this never-ending blender of orc shenanigans.
Yeah.
Who can stop him? It doesn't seem like anyone can besides turbulent winds.
As far as what Grimgore uses in battle, he has a massive double-sided axe named Skarsnik, which apparently just translates to foe killer. And according to, I think it was a Total War Warhammer game, specifically said that it was crafted in a place called Zahar Nagrund, which is Chaos Dwarfland. So a part of me thinks he got this thing because, he just nicked it from the Chaos Dwarfs during that big rebellion.
I'm a fair point.
Yep. It also has a bunch of charms and incantations put on it by orc shamans so that Grimgore can wield it and swing it even faster. And I believe there's a charm or there's some incantation on it, or it's a special weapon because Skarsnik literally never dulls.
You mean like it never dulls? Actually, it will always be sharp. Like there's some magical prowess.
It's just always sharp. That thing is just always ready to cut someone up. He also has an interesting little artifact called Mork's All-Seeing Eye.
I think I've heard that before. That sounds familiar.
Grimgore claims that he won the artifact by quite literally beating Mork in a headbutting contest.
Well, isn't Mork the cunning one? So I guess, I mean, if there's one he was going to beat, it wasn't going to be Gork.
True, but he literally beat God in a headbutting contest, supposedly.
That's I don't know, man. I think I believe him.
It is Grimgore.
That's a very orky thing to say. And
it is. And this artifact allows Mork to watch over Grimgore, and it literally protects him from enemy spells.
Oh, so it's a sort of anti-magic talisman.
Yep. Also, I guess now is just as good a time as any to talk about Wah energy, because it works a little different in fantasy. It's not really like the 40k power of belief. In fantasy, when an orc stages a Wah, like they can actually make like magical Wah energy from it. But usually it's just the orc and goblin shamans that are actually like channeling that energy into like a usable spell or something. And most orcs and stuff assume that the shamans they were born with like this special link to Gork and Mork, you know, and they can reach into the Great Green, which is their spirit realm, which is just this whole separate thing from the winds of magic. And it's how orcs use magic. And goblin shamans will usually use this energy for malicious hexes and stuff, so they're called the Little Wah. And orc shamans use it for more like brutal, violent spells that are kind of classified as the Big Wah.
Well, at least their naming conventions are similar.
They are. A few examples of the Little Wah spells are stuff like Curse of the Bad Moon, where a little goblin shaman will summon a creepy, grinning moon with fangs that terrifies their foes and makes them fight worse because you got a big, creepy-ass like moon looking at you. They've also got hilarious...
Like, just a moon, like, just staring at them?
Yeah, it's just this creepy moon with fangs and tusks that's just like, ah, and it like debuffs the enemies.
That's such a strange... All right, sure.
And they have another hilarious spell that's called Nicky, where the shaman literally summons two massive green hands. One hand holds the victim in place. The other green hand fleeces them of anything that might be valuable.
So it's just a gigantic pickpocket spell?
Yep, and it's called Nick it!
That's so goblin coded.
Mm-hmm. There's also a spell called Sneaky Distraction, where the caster will start wildly dancing and pointing behind the enemy, and they'll start screaming, "Oh, look it over there! Can you believe the size of that thing?" Which is basically akin to, like, you know, when a villain's like, "Oh my god, look over there," to try and get the hero to turn around.
No, but it's a spell, you said.
Yeah, and they cast it, and they start wildly dancing around and like gyrating, and it looks like they're like seizing up or something. It is what it is.
So is it actually like a spell in that case, or are they just doing that?
They claim it is, you know.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Like Shai says, it is important to note that Gork and Mork aren't like some metaphysical concept. Like, they are literal gods who will grant the shaman some degree of magical power.
Okay.
Like, they do exist.
Right. Well, whereas the concept of Gork and Mork in 40k is a bit more like nebulous.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to note.
And for the Big Wah, they have spells like the Hand and Foot of Mork, where the caster literally summons just a giant fist or a giant hand to crush the enemies. There's also a spell called the Gaze of Mork, which is basically just your standard eye beam of death. They also have a spell called Onez Nails. Straight up just lets them ignore battle damage or stamina problems.
Yeah, Arta's Nails is a thing in modern 40k as well. It's just a big toughness buff.
Let's go. But even if you have Arta's Nails on, there is still the detriment of being dismembered still applies.
So you're tough,
so if
but
you're
you can just get your
dismembered-
shit cut off.
Yeah, you still suffer the effects of like getting your head cut off, getting your arm cut off. You know, it's not all powerful. And they also have a spell that's literally called Wah, where it's just basically a super buff to the whole army, where they just like send Wah energy flowing out to everybody.
Yeah, this is all classic Greenskin shenanigans as far as I'm concerned.
And next up on our list of really dope Greenskins is a Night Goblin. But not just any Night Goblin. He is the king under the mountains, the king of Karak 8 Peaks. This is Skarsnik. And actually, there is quite a bit of detail about Skarsnik's life, because there's this playwright. His name is Jeremiah von Bickenstadt. He's trying to make it on his own in the world as a freelance writer. And somewhere along the way, poor Jeremiah is staying at an inn, and one night, night goblins invade, and he is taken captive. He is then sent to Skarsnik, and Skarsnik, seeing that he's, pretty good freelance writer, demands that he write down his entire life story.
Like,
So
does that include everything?
Like everything.
Like everything.
Everything from the moment he was conceived. Yep. There is being a true and complete history of Skarsnik. That is what the title of the book looks like. Yep. But I mean, I'm not going to talk about every little thing he does because we have more Greenskins to talk about today. But Skarsnik was known to be really intelligent. Again, by Greenskin and Goblin standards, he's pretty smart. And he's probably one of the most cunning little goblin to ever exist. And even though he was pretty smart, pretty cunning, he's still a goblin. He's still got to rise through the ranks. So, because he was smarter than your average Greenskin, smarter than your average goblin, he was made a runt boy. And while being a runt boy, he'd kind of play into the favor of stronger orcs, do the usual thing. But because he was smart and cunning, he would also do some really risky shit. Like, he made secret trades and secret deals with the Skaven to make himself, and I guess by proxy, his tribe, really wealthy. That was the plan. I'll trade with the Skaven, make myself wealthy, I'll get some stuff for my tribe too.
I feel like I recognize this goblin.
Really? You recognize Skarsnik?
I think that his... Because I recognize the moon symbol really well.
Okay.
And so I don't know. I feel like I've seen him before. Maybe like someone's model or something similar to that.
I mean, like Shai said, he is pretty famous. So it's entirely possible that you've seen his mini, you've seen the logo, you maybe heard about him. So it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
But naturally, Skarsnik gets caught dealing with the Skaven, and the Greenskin tribe he's in is none too happy about that. Like, they were going to execute him on sight, but in a stroke of luck, when they were going to execute him, the tribe is attacked by dwarfs. So instead of executing him, they just chuck him into an underground river and figure, whatever, that'll have to do. And Skarsnik survives, and he wakes up kinda near Karaz 8 Peaks, where he would be found and taken as a slave by a marauding wolf rider tribe of Greenskins.
I mean, I have to ask, does what's his story from there? I want to know what the writer's up to.
Oh, well, I think this is all after the fact. I think the writer is sort of jotting this down after the fact. I think by the time the writer gets to Skarsnik, I think Skarsnik has already risen to his peak.
Damn.
Which, no pun intended, actually. So Skarsnik literally being kept like a slave in this little prison wagon for years. But Skarsnik is a cunning little bastard, and he's not spent those years just sitting down, feeling just, bad for himself or anything like that. He is legit studying the Greenskins around him. He's learning what he can, who they interact with, who they capture, stuff like that. And he decides to do something that's going to really impress the leader of the Wolf Riders. And what does he do? So there's this passing dwarf that I guess just wandered by his little wagon cage. And Skarsnik, in Kazalid, the language of the dwarfs, suggested that this dwarf's mother enjoys having relations with ponies.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Understood.
And naturally, this dwarf, not happy about that. And this huge brawl ensues, this huge scuffle ensues. Everybody's fighting. But, as it happens, the wolf tribe leader is like, hey, not bad, kid. At this point, his name is just Runtgit, even though I'm going to keep calling him Skarsnik. Like, not bad. You pissed off a dwarf. You started a fight with a dwarf. Not only that, he was really impressed because Skarsnik, in his time in prison, somehow managed to learn the language of the humans, and he also learned the language of the dwarfs, which is kind of a crazy thing for a goblin to be able to do. And it impressed him so much, he releases Skarsnik from captivity, makes him an official spy.
And official spy?
Yep, he makes him a spy. He makes him a spy for the Wolf Riders, and now Skarsnik can go around and get down to business.
Okay.
And once Skarsnik is out as a spy, he starts rising through the ranks. He's getting tons of followers. He's killing all of his rivals. And at some point, he's even like, you know what? I want to take control of the Wolf Rider group. And so, very stealthily, he ambushes the war boss and just cuts his throat.
Because he's a stealthy little git, because that's what they do.
Because he's an ambusher. He's stealthy. He's cunning. If a goblin is going to kill you, he's going to jump you. He's going to stab you in the back. He's going to slit your throat. He's going to do something like that. And so this is his warband now, and he has made it his goal to claim Karaz 8 Peaks. But if you remember from our dwarf episode, Karak 8 Peaks is like the second most profitable hold for all of dwarfs. That's the one they really want back. So it is under constant war from Skaven, Greenskin, and dwarfs. It is literally just hell trying to retake this place. And so, with Skarsnik's just intelligence and his cunning, he starts using like the most primo ambushes and sneak attacks to start pushing into the upper levels of Karaz 8 Peaks. And he actually runs in to his old tribe, the one that like chucked him into an underground river. And one of his old rivals, a boss named Snow Truck, has become like the big boss. And instead of putting their rivalry aside and being like, you know what, we should just take Karaz 8 Peaks together, Snow Truck does the most Greenskin thing ever and just throws Skarsnik into a fighting pit with a bunch of cave squigs, kind of hoping that Skarsnik would just get eaten alive. What Snow Truck didn't count on, however, is that one of the bigger cave squigs that was supposed to eat Skarsnik, Skarsnik had befriended and literally saved that cave squig from Snow Truck when he was a runt boy. And so not only does the cave squig become like Skarsnik's best friend, like you rarely will see a picture of Skarsnik without this big squig named Gobla. Not only that, but his Wolf Riders show up. And with the Wolf Rider showing up and his new squig there, his squig literally eats Snow Truck, and Skarsnik has now taken over his old warband and has this just massive retinue of orcs and goblins.
That's a big squig. Well, is it a big squig or is the goblin just small?
Yes.
Okay. Fair play.
Yes. And after that, Skarsnik, again, he's really earning his reputation of being just the cunning master of ambushes as he pushes into Skaven territory. And he's using a lot of really cunning tricks, like for a goblin. Like, so remember how he used to do those like secret trades with the Skaven?
Right.
His old Skaven trading buddy is in here. And he's like, hey, you want to do a little trade with me? And when the Skaven and a bunch of his friends show up, he ambushes them. He uses that connection, and they just walk into a horrible ambush, shitloads of Skaven slaughtered. He would disguise his men in the pelts of dead Skaven so they could properly ambush, hit and run, take down the Skaven. And Skarsnik he knew how the Skaven worked. He would always make sure that if there was a little hidey hole, boom, he filled it, covered it up. They couldn't take it to advantage, always cut off the retreat lines, always made it so that, you know what? We're always going to have the number advantage against the Skaven. They're not going to get us the way they usually get people.
So he's a bit of like a actual kind of general type thing. He like kind of gets what he's doing.
Oh yeah, he knows what he's doing. He is cunning, and he sets up ambushes and traps and and he's just so proficient that he literally takes control of the upper levels of Karaz's 8 peaks. And it is understood by Goblin, Orc, whatever in the region of the World's Edge Mountain that Skarsnik is the king under the mountain. He is the king of Karaz's 8 peaks. That is his domain. And that's kind of the tale of Skarsnik.
I was about to say, so Skarsnik is kind of he's doing the hardcore goblin-y shenanigans, and
Yes.
he's good at them.
Can I do a goblin voice? Well, I can certainly try.
He did a goblin voice earlier. Oh, damn. Okay, let's see it.
Oh, all right. I seen him, you know. I seen him. The second time he talked to me, I was out there on the plains. I was all drunk one night, and the stars swam and went all green, and this big orc made of stars. He said, yo! He shouts lots, yo, little cranny, go home and be the biggest and bestest gobbo since Grom the Paunch flattened the pansies. Go on home now. You might think that's nonsense, but it ain't. Oh, it ain't.
That was pretty good.
Decent goblin? Pretty good?
That's pretty good, actually. Yeah, I gotta be honest. That was pretty damn solid.
All right, let's go. And that's a great segue, Shy. You see how that quote said, go home and be the biggest and bestest gobbo since Grom the Paunch?
Is Grom the Paunch our next character?
Oh, yeah. Didn't even plan it that way. Nice. High five, Shy. Bam. So Grom the Paunch is a goblin that is held in near godlike reverence to every other goblin. Because Grom was a goblin who actually managed to become a war boss and bully orcs into following his orders.
So okay, so he's the right gobbo.
Well, sort of. So you might be wondering, how could a goblin possibly do this? Goblins are tiny little things. Orcs are big things that bully him and force him to do the boring work. In Grom's case, he'd always been a big fan of food, eating. He was pretty fond of it. And one day, he decides he's going to eat some troll meat. And the problem with troll meat is, so trolls in Warhammer Fantasy have basically nigh infinite regeneration. Like I saw a post on, I don't know if it was the wiki or a forum or Reddit, but it was essentially along the lines of trolls' regeneration is so peak that if you cut a troll in half, with how hard their regeneration goes, now you've basically got 2 trolls to deal with.
I didn't realize trolls were like that.
Apparently, they are like that.
I always thought trolls were like the weird skinny type from World of Warcraft, because that's how I always remembered them as. That's
fair. Fair. That's kind of how I always picture them too. But trolls are no joke in fantasy. And so Grom he decides to consume just some raw troll meat. And once it's in his stomach, this troll meat literally starts to try regenerating inside of Grom. And so Grom is getting bigger and bigger. And in order to keep himself from exploding, in order to keep his stomach from just, he has to constantly eat massive amounts of food so that his system can keep digesting. It can keep digesting the regenerating flesh. And so with his near constant eating of the troll flesh, Grom grows absolutely massive in proportion. He is bigger than orcs. It's said everywhere that when he ate the troll flesh, it was the last day that he could see his own legs.
Sorry,
but
really
as the saying goes, he didn't mind that so much, because if he ever needed to see them, he could just order one of his underlings to see them for him.
So stupid. so
had to put that line in there.
So he's just a gigantic goblin.
Gigantic goblin. Just a massive goblin, yes.
Jesus.
And so the troll meat actually also gave Grom regeneration. Because after becoming so large and so big, he was like, you know what? I want to challenge this group called the Broken Axe Tribe. You know, he decides he wants to try overcoming a large, formidable orc tribe in the area called the Gutstabbers, and their war boss, Azhag Gutstabber. And so Grom walks in to challenge him all alone. And this guy, Azhag Gutstabber, he's like, okay, a goblin wants to challenge me? Sure, let him try. And so the two fight. And Azhag Gutstabber hits him with this big cleaver shot to, you guessed it, the gut, because he's Azhag Gutstabber. And immediately the wound starts closing up. And everybody's like, what the fuck? And Grom takes this opportunity to just dismember Azhag, and then he proceeds to literally kill all the big bosses of Gutstabber.
Does he I get the feeling that he would eat them.
Yes, he eats goblins, he eats orc, he eats everything. Grom also has this cool little story about his flag bearer. He doesn't have a specific name, but after killing all the big bosses, Grom, he's kind of exhausted, and he's just like, oh, I need to sit down. And he sits his big ass right down on a night goblin. And naturally, everybody's like, ooh, ooh, ooh. But Night Goblin squirms out from under him. He's just fine. And Grom is like, oh, that's a sign from Mork. And he promotes this little guy to his flag bearer.
Didn't they try to kill off Makari in 40K by having someone sit on him? I feel like
yeah, they did. You're right.
I feel like they tried to do that, and then people were like, "That's fucking stupid," and then they undid it.
It's also at this point that Grom is kind of getting sick of walking, so now he kind of goes everywhere in a massive chariot that he has made for himself. He also starts talking about himself in the third person, and he demands that his followers refer to him as Your Immensity.
I mean, yeah, okay.
Yep,
all right, yeah, got it.
Yep. There's also this time where Grom decides he's going to go to Blackfire Pass in the World's Edge Mountains because there's a lot of dwarfs there, there's a lot of loot there, there's a lot of stuff to be conquered there, and they specifically come up to this big statue dedicated to Grungi. It's the dwarf god of war and slayers, if you don't remember. And he sees this big statue, and he's like, you know what? Remake this in my image. And so the orcs and goblins start chiseling away at it, and they make a big statue for Grom. Naturally, this pisses off the dwarfs for a couple reasons. The first is the obvious one. You are performing sacrilege against our god, and big no-no. Second one, not as obvious. They were like, man, you couldn't even do sacrilege with good crafting? Like, that's such an ugly statue. You didn't even do it in good quality. What an insult. And so the dwarves make this huge concentrated effort to drive the Greenskins out of the ruins. Like, this big effort is made by a king named Bragaric. And so they start fighting, and for the most part, it's a stalemate, no clear winner, except that for dwarves, maintaining a stalemate might as well be a catastrophic loss, because like we've said in previous episodes, dwarves don't have a ton of numbers. And so if you end up losing 100 dwarf in a draw, that's really bad because Grom, even though he loses a lot of troops, he has like an infinite amount of goblins to choose from that will just immediately rebolster his army.
That's true.
So essentially, pulling a draw with the Greenskins is a massive loss for the dwarves. And the dwarves, they try to call for aid from the humans, but the emperor at the time is just like one of the worst emperors ever. He's just one of those really shit ones. And he hears that there's a huge horde of Greenskins pushing the dwarves. And he's like, you know what? Actually, fun fact, I'm moving the capital city as far away from the dwarves as I can, and we're not getting involved because no, of course we're not.
Okay, so wait, was this before? Was this one of those old emperors we talked about before back in the day? Was it wasn't there the emperor called like not like Emperor like Fatso or something?
Yeah, something the fat. This is just like one of the random like not great ones. I think it starts with like a D or something, but he's just a not good one. So Damn. Dwarves not happy about that. They put that in the Book of Grudges for sure. But pretty much all they can do is close the doors on their holds and just pray. And honestly, because the humans did that, they made it really easy for Grom to more or less just run roughshod over most of the Empire. Like, the Empire is getting kind of shreked by Grom. So much so that, like, Grom captures Nuln, and he has so much territory that he just stops fighting. Like, he is essentially just, like, sitting on top of a pile of loot going like, good enough, whatever, I'm fine with this, and just starts kind of being lazy.
That sounds like what I would imagine Grom would do, considering what he's like now.
Yep.
Because he's a big boy.
Mm-hmm. But the problem with that is, like, all of his Greenskin army is just like, bro, that's the most un-Greenskin thing you can do, and they just start leaving him. And so he loses, like, a majority of his army because he's just being very not orky. And it takes his shaman, old Bloodtooth, having a fever trance where he has a vision from Gork and Mork, and they're like, hey, you get that lazy piece of shit moving, and you get that lazy piece of shit to go to the sea and start conquering new lands because this is getting ridiculous. And so Grom does that, and even though he lost most of his forces, all Grom had to do was bellow into the air that he was going on a Wa, and man, he got tons of forces back. He starts rampaging towards the coast. Have to talk about this. He makes a stop in a place called Middelheim because his chariot got destroyed, and so he's like, oh, I got to make a new one. And so he rips the roof off of a temple, makes a new one. But he's in such a hurry. That's the only thing he does there. There's no other casualty. There's nobody dies. The Wa doesn't take anything. The only casualty of Middelheim is a temple roof.
I mean, he was very busy.
He was a busy boy.
You think he's gonna walk?
Right? No, of course not. How dare you? So Grom finally makes it to the coast with his Greenskins, and they just start cobbling together makeshift ships, makeshift sails. They look very orky. A lot of the Black Orcs are really pissy about this because, of course, they don't want to do like boring builder work. But any Greenskin that was like upset about it, Grom killed them and probably ate their remains. Which suddenly every Greenskin was like, I love building ships.
It's just so. Is there ever a dynamic where it's like, oh, Grom has become like the orcs, he's just as bad, or is that not a thing that they think about?
I mean, there's probably a dynamic where he's so big and he's so large that he's just so well respected because of his size that I don't know.
No, that's true. He's just a big boy in general. Therefore,
yeah, and he just keeps growing. Yeah. So Grom now has his sort of little makeshift naval fleet, right? He's got this ragtag bunch of ships that they just cobbled together with whatever was lying around, and the Imperial Navy sees this awkward fleet of Greenskins sailing around, and they're like, we should probably do something about that, but the weather will probably get them. It's fine. But the weather doesn't get them, and they just keep sailing along, and nothing bad is happening, and the Navy's like, damn it, we have to attack them, don't we? Shit! And so the Navy goes to attack Grom's little fleet. And Grom literally destroys half of the Imperial Navy. Their forces have to retreat, and there's this really important place called Marienburg. It's important because it's like the biggest maritime trading hub for the Empire and for Bretonnia. It's undefended now. This is a big deal. This is awful. But thankfully, they luck out because the Navy was initially right. Grom's fleet does end up kind of falling mostly to like bad weather. Big, huge storm rolls in, and a lot of Grom's fleet just gets absolutely waylaid by it. The remaining forces have to kind of ride out the storm. Storm lasts for like 40 days, and they end up washing up on none other than Ulthuan. They wind up washing up on the shores of the elves.
Is there a is there a specific thing that the orcs like have a weakness to, just inclement weather? Like they are consistently brought low by weather.
You know, that's really true. They are consistently getting bodied by the weather, aren't they?
I keep every time you're like, well, you know, it looks like we got to stop Iron Gut Gore
Grimgore Ironhide.
Ironhide.
There you go.
Grimhide.
It's been a long episode. I don't blame you.
Grimhide Gore Iron was brought low by weather multiple times. They've got their ships sent out to the Eldar. The elves.
Yeah, no, that's true. The elves, the legally distinct elves, sure.
I just feel like it's such a constant.
It really is. And as you can imagine, as they wash up on the shore, they just start going ham. They start going ham on Ulthuan. The shaman, Old Blacktooth, is actually getting like juiced to the gills by all the elf waystones that are hanging around. There's this big high elven kingdom called, I'm gonna butcher this, Yavrasi. That is Grom is getting real close to taking it. But this is kind of where Grom falls, because as he was making his way to Yavrasi, he ransacks this place called Aethel Tamra, which was the ancestral home of this just legendary high elf named Eltharion. And once Eltharion found out that his ancestral hometown was like bodied, he shows up. And not only he kills Blacktooth, just bodies Blacktooth, and then once Blacktooth is gone, he's like this big mage. All of the Greenskin forces, they kind of start to just retreat. Grom tries his hardest to keep the fight going, tries his hardest to keep the war together, but everybody is just so devastated when Blacktooth dies. Their forces have already been scattered by, the sea and everything. He lost all his troops once he got lazy. Everybody's retreating, and Grom is just like, well, I guess me too. And Grom retreats and is kind of just never seen again. Don't know what happened to him. Don't know where he is.
So Big Boy is just kind of around, but not?
Yeah. He's probably just somewhere on Ulthuan, just looking for stuff to happen.
Huh.
So Shai's quote is, with the ignominy of defeat, a not-so-distant memory, the proclaimed king of the goblins hungers still, both for anything he can get in his mouth and the glories of conquest. In time, Grom's wah shall amass once again and return to claim the biggest prize.
I like how you started that with an orc voice, because you weren't
quite. It was an orc quote.
Because you weren't quite sure. Quote. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I was like, it was funny.
It was an orc quote. You can't blame me.
I can't blame you, but it was funny. The biggest. All right,
we have one more. It's not too terribly long, but we got one more that we just have to talk to.
All right.
Last up, we're talking about Azhag the Slaughterer. Pretty interesting story, not super long. So at the start of Azhag's story, he's kind of like, he's an orc. And he's in kind of like the northernmost part of the fantasy realm. And this region is not a super happy, fun place to be in because it's like super chaos afflicted. And worse yet, Azhag is in troll territory. And trolls, they hate normie greenskins. If a troll sees a greenskin, it wants to kill it. So one day, as Azhag is just trying to survive all this bullshit, he and his boys are kind of forced to retreat into some underground ruins. And, you know, the underground ruins suck just as much as topside because, like, they're fighting demons, chaos is everywhere. And then Azhag runs into a multi-headed demon troll. And to Azhag's credit, he kills it. He kills this multi-headed demon troll somehow. He probably sets the thing on fire so that it can't regenerate anymore. And he's like, oh man, I'm so cool. And so he starts sifting around this chaos demon troll's den. He's looking through the bones, looking for anything cool. And he finds a fancy-looking twisted iron crown.
Uh-oh.
And Bricky, do you remember any important crown artifacts that are all twisted that we've talked about before?
Was this a Tomb King thing?
It is definitely Tomb King adjacent.
Wasn't it like, was it Cetra or was it Nagash? I forget.
I forget
which.
Nagash.
I forget which one. It's Nagash. Okay. I wasn't sure if it was Nagash's crown because I know Cetra came back and he had all of his titles and his craziness. Okay, so it's Nagash's crown. Gotcha.
Yep, he finds the crown of sorcery that belonged to none other than Nagash.
Oh boy.
And thinking it was a proper crown for someone like himself, he's just like, you know what? It is. I just beat a demon troll. This is my crown. And he puts the crown on his head. And almost immediately, he's like, whoa. I know the perfect route out of these ruins. I know how to get my boys to safety. It's like he had always known exactly where to go in these ruins. Now, if you don't remember, the way the Crown of Sorcery works is it does give you a shitload of power, but it starts to, like, take control of you. It starts to warp your mind. You sort of bend to the power of Nagash, as it were. You bend to his will. Like, if you remember, even Sigmar felt it kind of making him become more violent, more harsh. It made me feel like I just wasn't myself until he was able to rip it off.
Right. He was like, I don't like this anymore.
But see, orc brains are a little different. The wiki paints it as, yes, the orc mind is one of single determined strength. But like Shai told me, and I more or less agree with her, Azhag's orc brain was just too stupid to be totally mind-washed by the crown.
Wait, he's just like, I'm so dumb, there's nothing to control?
Yeah, like, not to say that it didn't change him, because he did start speaking in a very un-orc-like manner, which I take to mean complete sentences. And he would often be seen by his troops like arguing with himself, or it looked like he was talking to someone that wasn't there. But it seemed like no matter how strong the will of Nagash was in the crown, it just couldn't compete with a simple orc mind, and it was never able to, like, fully take control of Azhag. Like, they would just argue, and so what ends up happening is, instead of trying to control him, the crown starts whispering advice to Azhag, and it starts telling him how to, like, be a good general, you know, how to do tactics, and it actually supercharges him and gives him power over dark sorcery. So not only is he now an orc brutal killing machine, he now has, like, the sorcery and the advice of basically Nagash. And as you can imagine, it didn't take long for Azhag to become like a war boss and basically unite the Greenskin tribes of the north. And his renown grows so much that they bring him the biggest, most fierce wyvern that they can find so that he can be, you know, he needs the biggest, craziest mount because, Azhag, he is the greatest. And he names this wyvern Skull Muncher.
So, like, remind me, does the crown of Nagash actually have Nagash telling people things, or is it his favorite crown?
I think there is actually a part of Nagash's will that is inside the crown, like telling people what to do, taking them over, mind warping them, and all that. Yeah.
Okay, because I was thinking that, and I was thinking to myself, like, Nagash, just the part of his mind trying to take him over was like, well, this isn't going to work, so I'll just like have him do my stuff.
Yeah, I mean, kinda. Like Shai said, it's literally a ripoff of the Ring of Power from Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Right? But the crown is kind of getting unsatisfied with the way things are going because it's like, yeah, Azhag is becoming a big war boss, but like the crown wants to head to Kislev territory. The wiki said the crown wanted to be reunited with its rightful owner, so I'm assuming Nagash's remains are down there somewhere, and so the crown compels Azhag to head in that direction. And to get there, Azhag needs to go through the northern parts of the Empire, which he goes on a tear. Again, he's not like other Greenskin war bosses. He's using actual tactics. He's not just mindlessly pushing forward. He's doing pincers. He's doing flanks. He's obliterating humans. He gets the title the Slaughterer from doing all this stuff. But there would be a battle at a place called Osterwald that the Crown of Sorcery would kind of bite Azhag in the ass. So the battle's going all right. Azhag's doing his thing. But the crown is like, man, I don't like the tactics you're using in this fight. And God, you're not listening to me like you used to. You're not doing what I tell you. So I need more control over you. And so the crown starts to get frustrated and starts to like try to take the reins a little bit more. But Azhag is kind of fighting it off, you know, and as he's fighting it off and arguing, he's arguing at the crown like, no, I'm in control. It leaves him completely vulnerable because he can't defend himself because he's trying really hard to like fight with the crown.
Because he's fighting his own brain in a sense.
Yep. He takes a spear right to the belly and is killed by a man named Werner von Kriegstadt. And crown falls off his head. And without Azhag, the Wa obviously falls apart and the Empire is saved. The Grand Theogonist of the Empire, which is like big priest boy, was also present. He sees Azhag's crown and is immediately like, oh no, that shit is super evil. You don't even got to tell me. I am not touching that thing with bare skin. Kind of picks it up with like, I like to imagine he like picks it up with a stick. Because I don't want to touch it.
I was thinking like more like he wraps his hands in like a t-shirt and then just like lifts it up that way.
Yeah. And they take it back to the capital city and they secure it deep, 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 deep in a temple of Sigmar. And so ends Azhag's reign.
I feel like them securing it way down there it's because didn't Nagash lead like a crusade to get his crown back?
Yeah, and I think Sigmar takes it out of the vault and kind of uses it to bait Nagash into showing up and kill him. Yep.
It's coming. It's all coming back a little bit, you know. Like
it's all coming back.
There's a lot of shit in there. So
see now you know how I feel, right? With all the stuff you gotta juggle around and pick back
up. True. Granted, the Realm of Ridiculous has been much shorter. We've had under 10 episodes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess we only have had... That's true. I don't know why. It feels like we've been doing this for a while, but anyway, yeah. And that's the Greenskins.
Good God.
It's Greenskins.
Greenskin.
Yep. Went a little long because I probably spent a little too much time explaining all of the little sauce about the Greenskins in general, but they have some really weird, interesting war bosses and characters that, you know, we had to talk about them.
The sauce, you say?
The sauce, you know. You know, their source, right?
Yeah, no.
What's the sauce? What's the sauce?
I mean, for the most part, the Greenskins are exactly what I was expecting.
Yeah, they are very, very, like, not a ton has changed since we went into 40K. Like, the power of belief was a nice little change. Love that. But other than that, like, just the basic way Greenskins act and function is more or less the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, instead of a little bit more of the nebulous shenanigans, there's a lot more of the like, yep, this is the power of the wall cast or whatever, and here it is, we're just We're just sending out all kinds of spells, and it's a very traditional fantasy kind of thing. That's a great point. Thank you, Shai. Grom has been known to be based off of your mother. Of course.
I love looking over and seeing DK skipped one interesting fact about Grom. His Warhammer Total War model is based on your mother. Nicely done, Shai. Nicely done.
Grom. What a fucking dude.
He's wherever he is.
He's not alive, unfortunately. Oh no, he lived. It was the Blacktooth guy that died. That's right.
Yeah, it was Blacktooth. His shaman died.
Did they, if you poke him in the belly, he just deflates like a hot air balloon and just goes like and flies around the battlefield?
I would love that if he did. But if you poked him in the belly, he would just instantly regenerate.
Yeah, it's true. It's not.
Unfortunately.
We're not having all fun.
It's all just Mountain Dew and Doritos start pouring out. Yeah.
Grom the gamer Grom the gamer sitting in his fucking DX Racer giant gaming chair with a face full of Doritos and Mountain Dew. Perfect. I have my new ship.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of which, how about the new No.
Oh God.
Next week's new poster. Let's go.
Next week, chat, we'll get Grom the gamer for you. For any of you who feel like there need to be more obese gamer men in the world, let's go.
Just what we needed more of.
We'll see you next time, baby.
Also, short pause because Shai's asking music.
No,
I don't hear any
music.
There's
background noise in the back of your mic, DK.
Oh, well, hey, she asked if it was you.
Yeah, well, I know what it was, and it's not me.
Oh, wow, you guys could hear the leaf blower?
Yes.
Oh, well, sorry. And his cunning for.
I heard that.
What the fuck is happening here?
I heard that slam.
What the hell? What is going on today? What the fuck? What the fuck? Anyway,
you can hear the trash truck.
No way. No. Dude,
do you not have like a gate?
I do.
Okay, I mean, okay, so you may need to like. I can hear the trash truck. I can hear everything going on. That's just so funny. Okay, redo. Say it again.
What? Okay. Because after becoming, you have got to be kidding me.
What the hell's going on in your background, man?
I do not know what is happening today. I don't know, like, why the gods have conspired against me today and just been like, oh no, today, everything everywhere. Fucking yes, of course, someone's vacuuming today. Sure. Give me like a minute. I didn't plan this. I swear I didn't plan this. I swear it's not my fault. All right, so. You're the playing guy. Shut up.